So welcome back to episode 3 of Roxanne and Robin's podcast. Super excited today to bring another absolutely mind-blowing guest on today. This podcast was set up to signpost and celebrate those people in the Flat Earth community that are making a difference today. And stick around, because today's subject matter is the greatest story never told. History is a fairy tale. So before we do that, how are you doing, Roxanne?
I'm good. How are you, darling? I'm
really, really well, thank you. So why don't we start with you? What kind of things are going on with you and what's coming up?
Okay, so as you know, I'm pursuing this education path with Anthony. And that's going, can't say too much, but it's going in all sorts of directions at the moment, but nothing negative. So we're moving forward with that step by step. Also, this weekend, I'm going to be doing a pretty major observation with another person. I can't say too much about that just now, but you'll see more of that when I go live with it this weekend.
Fantastic.
And next week, we've got Truth Talks with
okay.
and Dave Mennell. We've got that at the Vanbrugh, and that's on the 27th of December. And then
Awesome.
Speaker's Corner on the 30th of December. And do you know what? I've got a funny feeling there's a couple I've missed out there.
You may want to mention what happened. Jason said something on Facebook recently.
Oh,
that's easy.
The best for last. Oh yes, Jason of the Disbury. He kind of did like a major under the radar drop about something major next year, and he kind of did it in a kind of major kind of way, kind of thing. So Jason kind of pointed us in the direction of next year, Global Tour 2. It's going to be bigger. It's going to be much more extensive than the last one. And yeah, it looks like, light at the end of the tunnel.
Fantastic. Well, we've had loads of volunteers for help. Those who want to be a roadie, those who want to do some admin, those who want to join and actually become part of this huge relay, which I'm sure Jason will announce at some point. Speaking of relays and activism, how about the US tour? Have you heard anything about?
David Gessner, didn't he make a drop on his website about the American tour? There's information about that now. Can you divulge a little bit on that?
Yeah, so I think it's called flatearthtour.com.
Yeah. And
so far, I think David's announced that there will be 51 stops across the state, across the nations, the state, sorry. And people are obviously applying now to become that representative, where they'll be doing street activism, flyers, and so on. Yeah. So well done to the Global Eye team in the UK for, I guess, inspiring that activity, which is awesome.
It's almost like setting a precedent, isn't it? It's set a precedent for it to be going on from that point onwards. And I suppose it had to start somewhere. And at least it started, and now it's going to carry on. And now next year there's 2 international.
do you know what people are going to struggle with? It's round the clock live stream consuming, because it's quite
when people were asleep, no one seemed to have a problem with Big Brother 24-hour live streams. I remember people rushing away from work to get home in time to watch Big Brother or Celebrity Get Me Out of Here or whatever, real life, not real life. That's the last thing it is real life. Yeah. But people spend an inordinate amount of time watching TV.
Sure.
There's a new app now that you can get for your phone. There's an app for everything. It tells you how much time, it keeps an eye on exactly how much time your eyes are on the actual screen, not
screen time,
app or something. It tells you, and it's horrendous how much time we consume just doing mundane things like that. So I think at least it will be something other than visual chewing gum.
Sure. Do you know what I used to
recordings for the cold months.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I used to listen to it at work. I used to have it on the desk next to me with an earphone in. People used to say, "Are you still on the phone?" I said, "No, I'm listening to Harry and Jason and the team." So funny. Speaking of which, actually, Harry's just released his compilation video.
Yeah.
Wow. I got to the end of it after, it's about 2 and a bit hours, isn't it? And so many memories.
Like that when you watch it though, I didn't feel like it was quite late at night when I started watching it, admittedly. But it was about something to midnight by the time I finished, and it literally felt like I've been watching it for 35 minutes. I don't know where the time went. It just went. It's an amazing body of work. And I'm not just talking about the YouTube aspect of it. It's the fact that those interviews have happened. It's not a piece of content that's been made for YouTube. He's been out there. He's done the mileage. He's put the time in. It's an absolute monumental effort that he put in. And not just over last year. There was a bit the year before as well, remember? So, I mean, not the year of 2018, but wow. Just wow.
I know. If you think of the number of minds that have changed as a result, and then all the dinner table conversations that have happened since, it's quite mind-boggling, really.
Yeah.
So, if you don't mind, let's just catch up with a few things that have happened to me in the last couple of weeks.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. Can you tell us what's been going on with you?
Well, as you know, I've had a documentary filmmaker approach me, and things are starting to move. I've also had 3 people from ProveTheGlobe.com. I've been teeing up little face-to-face. It's been really interesting, actually, because these guys kind of know they're not in for a ding-dong battle. They know they're in for a conversation rather than something quite challenging.
Yeah.
And they start out by listing all the points that I'm supposed to accept as their proof of a globe. And I don't think they quite know how to deal with me, because I'm saying it doesn't really matter as long as you're satisfied. It's proof of a globe. The community will decide, because eventually I'll post our interview or conversation up on YouTube, and we'll see if it stands the test of time. And I've got 3 people now sort of exchanging emails with me, and I hope to set these up for next week. But then the final bit of exciting news really is I've now booked the venue for the UK conference next year. And we're collaborating now with DED and Gary.
Yeah, so two events have been booked now. That's it, it's booked. Signed,
it's booked. It's booked. And I've also secured some really good speakers, and our guest speaker tonight will be one of them, which I'm thrilled about. And it's really exciting. So in the next sort of 2 to 4 weeks, I'm actually going to be quite busy preparing, speaker packs and schedules, and talking to the venue about food and diet and all those sort of things. Just the admin around that, and then the marketing will begin, and the launch will begin in January for both events. Awesome. So really excited.
It is. It's moving forward really quickly, isn't it?
It certainly is. Yeah, and it's just finding a venue that has everything laid on. Takes the sweat away from having to worry about parking, food. These guys actually handle conferences day in, day out. So you actually have a rep on site with you all the time saying, is everything okay? So watch this space, Roxanne, because there's going to be lots happening. And, as I've asked you before, my dear, it will be an absolute honour for you to co-host with me during that event. And,
Where do I sign?
I want to take the sweat of the admin away from you and the organisation, so just you and I can co-host, and I'll make it as simple and easy for you as I can.
Awesome. Can we do it tomorrow?
Yeah, I know, it would be fantastic if it was all ready for tomorrow, but I think what we'll do here is we'll break for a little bit of music, and when we come back we'll have our very special guest Martin Liedtke, and we shall announce him very shortly. So be right back.
Welcome to the show where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show if you don't know it's part of the show. Then they teach you to reach for the stars while opening up the bars and keeping you chained down with mortgage bills and cars. Vaccines for your arms, kids sounding like supercharged. Caffeinated hate-filled scars and rage-quit repertoires. No answers for yards, caught up in emotion that's not even yours. Imposter truths like impeccable retards, lined up for your serving of gish galloping wars. No remedy can't save the lost, in love with the on. I'm tired of walking into refracted knowledge shards. Poor science displayed by disgusting bards. Soaked in sin with your dupe is delight in a new hand of cards. Been so long, seems like for love I'm just too hard, I'm just too hard. I said, welcome to the show, where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know. Intoxicated ache makes you believe you're spinning in space while you have no shame or grace. It's a disdainful state I used to contemplate how to save myself from my own self-hate. Wonder why I was even made with a dreadful fate. Forced to try and wake with a full plate. No one to help me stay awake or educate. I've had to liberate and fight through hidden gates. But my brother, heaven could never be late. And rockets don't work in space. It's all fake. The show is on Mars. It's a joke, but you're too far gone. It won't be long. Pepe's beak is strong. We have our sun and we march along like streams of knowledge leading to God's holy pond. And lives of truth that hits the bong and sings the song, turns mankind from the wrong. We come in peace with a holy gown and all of us wearing our holy crowns. So the earth is flat and we probably just won't get along. Just to go along, I said, welcome to the show, where you don't know if it's part of the show. Welcome to the show. If you don't know, you don't know.
Hey there, Paul on the Plane here. Hope you're enjoying this episode of Roxanne and Robin's podcast, Flat Earth Cognitive Liberty, Truth, Freedom, as much as I am. I'd like to also take this opportunity to personally invite you to check out my weekly podcast, Dome Life with Paul on the Plane, where my guests and I discuss the latest topics and happenings in the ever-expanding, ever-growing Flat Earth community as citizens of plain Earth awaken to the globe deception and discover the growing body of empirical evidence that logically and reasonably points us to a conclusion that God's creation, our home, is flat and motionless. New episodes of my podcast are released every week and are available exclusively on my website, paulontheplane.com, and also on the SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify podcast platforms. So be sure to add Dome Life with Paul on the Plane to your weekly Flat Earth content listening routine, and drop me a line if you'd like to be a part of a future episode. I'd love to hear your Flat Earth story. Thanks for listening, much love across the plane, and stay flat. Dome Life with Paul on the Plane. Check it out on my website, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify.
Our exciting guest this week has spent the last 12 to 18 months digging into old documents, maps, and linking up with other researchers across the plane, and coming across some startling evidence of a huge cover-up, a massive lie and a grievous crime of revisionism never known until recently. Roxanne and I have followed Martin Liedtke, aka Flat Earth British, on YouTube's journey with interest. And he's patiently and diligently uncovered each stone and collated his evidence in what is now becoming a widely recognized body of work across the research community. What has impressed me is the way in which this has become a monumental team effort, bringing people together from across the plane. I've seen people from Ukraine, Australia, the States, and Bonnie, Wales, amongst others, to join the dots in today's interview. We'll find out exactly what Martin has discovered and what this might mean for us, the truth seekers today. So Martin Liedtke, a very warm welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, Roxanne, for the invite. I'm very excited to be here.
Fantastic. So let me just start from the beginning, if I may, Martin. Most people who come on our podcast are actually started their journey into truth and stumble across flat Earth. How about you share what started you into the truth and then into flat Earth, and then we'll move on to tonight's subject matter.
I've always been there. I've always been there since the very beginning of my life. I've been questioning it all. And I think the first conspiracy, what they would call a conspiracy, was a book that was handed to me when I was a child. I was 7 years old, and I was like really addicted to reading at that time. And it was Gold of the Gods by Eric von Daniken. And the book shot my head to pieces. Wow. And then I realized, that there was more going on with history. So by the time I got to school, I was not popular in school because I had a really good library at that stage. And I would bring my own books in and I asked the teachers, can you explain this to me? And can you explain that? And why aren't you mentioning this subject? So I was not popular. So I was treated as kind by these people. So, but I had an alternative childhood. I never really had anything like anybody else that I met sort of childhood. I grew up at sea. My father was a ship's captain. Okay. So I didn't really do much schooling, if I'm honest. When I was back in Cardiff, I would spend more time over the woods with the boys around a campfire rather than go to school. So I couldn't take these people. I thought they were all ignorant. They weren't teaching, and I knew then that it was indoctrination, even at a really, really young age, maybe 13, 14, because my father and the alternative lifestyle, I was around, had drinking Estonian seamen all my childhood. I knew the score young about life. Okay. These people, yeah, so they were just like, I could see straight through everybody as a child. My family liked this. So, it was had to be school.
So that's quite a blessing, really, wasn't it? Because you managed to keep out from all the indoctrination, and you probably had a curiosity which has taken you where you are today. So, yeah, exactly. What got you into flat Earth in the first place?
Well, it's a curious thing, and I've known a lot of people that question has been asked to have given exactly the same answer. I was actually addicted to the radio show Coast to Coast. With George Snorri and John B. Wells, who very much don't like the flat Earth community. But I was addicted to the show. I was listening to 2-3 hours a day, and it's very mainstream conspiracy stuff. But I thought they had some gold nuggets. And the first time I ever heard a reference to flat Earth was on that show with John the Morgile. But it was called Enclosed Earth. And they never said the words flat Earth in it, so I didn't get it. The penny didn't drop. So they're obviously sat there. And then I was looking for a show, and it was a show about time travel, funnily enough, with Whitney Strieber. I was looking for it, and I seen, there's that flat Earth again. And it was Max Sargent's The Clues, and it was every day recommended. And I'd avoided it for maybe a week. Right? I'm not thinking it was a silly notion, because I don't think like that. I think, well, I'll have a look, see what it says. And that was it. That was the end of it. It was the... one led to the other, the Eric Dubés. There weren't too many at this stage. There was only Eric, Max Sargent, and a few others out there, like Rory Perspective, people like that. Yes. There was maybe a dozen content providers and all. That was all. So it was crazy at the beginning. And there was, and then all of a sudden, I suppose I was late to phase one. And then it was explosion then, and everyone started, normal people in their houses talking. And I thought that was the sweetest thing of it all. I would picture in my mind everybody in their homes, in their little boxes, all across the plain. And there would be millions and millions all speaking out their story. I thought it was the sweetest thing I'd ever seen, speaking their truth. So that was one blessing. I loved it. Brilliant.
So, yeah, because I was observing who was first in the UK to sort of get going, and I think, please forgive those that I don't mention here. But
there was a few. Del was around the same time, Beyond the Imaginary Curve. He cranked up exactly the same time around as myself. We both, I think it was maybe in the same few months. I started posting September 2015. But I dumped my first few videos because they were abominable, which I regret now. The first few ones are like, I can't even look at an old video myself. I don't look at my videos. I find them nauseating.
It's just it's just getting started, though. That's the main thing, isn't it? And yeah, so I guess the first ever meetup that I saw was that the one down in Oxfordshire or down
No,
on
no.
was it
As far
Bedford
as we
Levels?
know, as far as we know, I don't really know if this is the truth, but the way I see it is the first flat Earth in this revival since the days of Roboth and Parallax, or maybe the 80s revival with Ferrari, which didn't go nowhere. So I feel that the first meet was I met Nathan Oakley, his wife, way before she had the baby. I think she was pregnant then, so it was a long time ago. I know she's grown up now. And another guy, Stephen from Sheffield, turned up, and it was we went to view the Mapper Monday, the Hereford Mapper Monday in Hereford Cathedral. That was the first meet. I think the first main flat Earth meet then was in Oxford, in 2016, and that was when people came over from America. It was biggest contingent of flat earthers to that time. It was absolutely amazing. I absolutely loved it.
I remember seeing the film footage of that. I was quite jealous actually, because I joined it in late 2015 and was quite passive for about a year, and then got involved. So I think I need to ask you now, what obviously you do your flat earth research, and then you get to a point where you've done your bit, and then you think, what else can I do? So was that the kind of thinking for yourself to move into the research you're doing now?
Yeah, more or less. They're lying, so it didn't take a genius to work out. Once you spot a liar, they're lying. That's the end of it. So I thought, well, do I really want to spend my time on YouTube just calling out liars, which has a negative buzz anyway because it's in the negative, or do I want to go forward? So I've always been really, really massively into apart from sort of geography, cartography, matters, history, great love. So I thought, well, Matt, you know so much about history. You've always got these questions. Dive in, and within no time, it caught on. I suppose I went on the fly. My inspirations would have been definitely Earth herself. She is monumental in this, no matter what standpoint she's coming from. Her ideals have been brilliant. So I suppose I followed on the tail end of that. She was inspiration in this field anyway. I feel, and I suppose I went from there.
Okay, so New Earth, you're mentioning a New Earth channel, and that was her channel all about alternative histories right from the outset, or was it a mixture?
Well, I would have loved to have contributed to those early stages when I watched New Earth. It was like it was absolutely brilliant, but there was just ginormous bits missing in between, which I knew in my head. So I thought, well, I got to get this stuff out. I could see what was happening. I was just trying to find a way to explain it to the people is what I had to master, and that's what I tried to do. Because it's hard to, especially with some of these really advanced subjects, to be able to find a way to simplify it and explain it to people. It's not easy to do. So that's why I had to try and do 2 years.
Do you know what that leads me to my next question is this could be a real challenging question. If I had like 2 minutes in an elevator and we were going from the top to the bottom of a building, so you just had 2 minutes, how would you summarize what you've discovered?
I just won't believe anything that's presented to me, and I don't see why I should. These people that control us, it doesn't take a genius to work out. Look, 100 years ago, Robin, they sent 1 million men from this small island to their deaths to get blown apart for no specific reason. I find that unimaginable. If you don't go, or if you don't go over the top, you're going to get shot anyway. So you're going to be murdered, or banged up in jail if you don't go to die for some cause, which we all know now is fake. Okay, so this is the realm that we live in. So I was aware that our lives are not our own. So why would I just pander to these people who could take your life or order you to your death at any moment? So I was really suspect that anything they would present was accurate. So I had a very eerie feeling around churches. I thought there was more going on with them. God, wasn't I right? The history has always been a big, everything turning up at the sort of 1900 mark was a massive alarm bell in my head right the way through my life. The calendar was also So, you know, with the added 1,000 years and I think smaller windows of history, definitely makes much more sense to everyone who delves in. They just keep, it's like with the stars, you know, everything is infinitely far away. So it's, you know, we can't ever reach it. It's all over there. And they're doing the same with the calendar as well in history. So it's intangible. You know, anything that they find, they will attribute to Rome or Greece. And it's 2,000 years ago and it's right back over there, which is why it's so deep in the mud.
Okay. So, Roxanne, please feel free to chip in if you've got questions.
Yeah, I mean, you've said so many things that have got markers for me. As I said, I've been watching your work for a little while. I was put onto your channel from Sun and Moon Family, from Karen's channel. I saw you on there. And, you know, throughout my life, I've always had massive questions about, you know, the history that I've been taught, the year that I'm in. As a child, I wasn't comfortable with, you know, talking in terms of reverse years. BC never sat comfortably with me the second I heard it as a child. My first question was, what year was that though? I know you're saying that was
before.
And they kept on saying before. And I know before was 0. So can you give me the year? I just want the year. Can you tell me as a child? I said, well, whatever the year was before 0 is the reset. So they don't want us to know what that number is. They would obviously keep that number well away from us. And the fact that they have us talking in reverse, it just all chimed uncomfortable bells for me. And a little bit like Marilyn Wisby, when she asked the question, I was just told to not be so ridiculous and go and sit down. You know?
Yeah, I've met Marilyn. Yeah, she's awesome.
The same question that I had about Antarctica. Why did the metal bit go through? What's that bit of land? Why is that not? Why is it all just? Why are you not telling us about that? Why is it just penguins? And why is it nothing, you know, substantial that you're teaching us about it? And I had those same questions through secondary school. So anybody that's researching into research timelines, I've always stated from when I started making content that we're all massively disconnected from our lineage. And if you try and trace your own family, it all starts going a bit ski-whip.
I did it. You're right.
Prior to about 1910. So I kind of used to focus my research on the early 1900s. Now, I completely missed liquefaction, mud floods. I did not see that one coming a mile off. I tapped into the Renaissance and I realized that the Renaissance wasn't what we were told it was. And I realized that the Renaissance almost was like the massive defacing of the history and altering it and changing it to fit a narrative and things like that. But I always found there was a lot of murky water prior to 1909. Just prior to 1909, it all starts to get really messy. But in 1909, they claimed they did the Nimrod expedition. They claimed the South Pole. They claimed the North Pole. And they went, right, that's it. Jobs are good and it's a ball, everyone.
Yeah.
North Pole, jobs are good and on we go.
Everywhere's discovered, like on Truman Show. There's nowhere left to discover Truman.
The seal was locked as of 1909. They kind of just went, that's it. Jobs are good and get on with your lives.
Oh, you're right.
The madness ensues after that. They've got the think tanks, they've got the Chatham House Rule, the Institute of Current Affairs, and then you've got the Bilderbergs and all the think tanks and everything that's linked off of that. Is to then subdue the lie. I understand that. We're all, I think we all get that kind of.
I don't think they're protecting us though.
But for me, it's incredible to me how this mud flood does link to the reset, and that's the bit that had my ears pricked up. And with the architecture, as that's you know, I did a hangout with Richie Lopez and Philip Dragenian, and he was incredibly knowledgeable on all of these things, and it's just mind-boggling the amount of miles that you've all got underneath your belts. And I'm wondering if you can kind of give me a little background into what the best evidence is for the reset in your words, in all the research you've done. Kind of what's the best evidence?
The older buildings, I've witnessed this stuff for myself. I seen an older Cardiff underneath the streets of Cardiff. I couldn't believe my eyes. So it was literally streets under streets. So I just blew my mind. I was working on this department store, scrapping it. And I went down, and there was an arcade with Victorian shop windows. Obviously nothing in them, but the street was there. And I thought, oh my God. But I knew about these underground cities. Turns out all of the cities. So the question is, why are they so deep and what has happened? Now, Turns out that the only real old buildings are churches, and that belongs to that institution that took them over around the Renaissance, as you say, and they weren't churches in the past. They're reversed engineers, technosmia devices, okay? So they are devices, they're machines. They've taken these over, okay? Now, the question with these events, I go on early 1800s because of living memory, right, Roxanne? I'm 51. Now, when I was a kid, there was a street that local, and it was full of World War I troops. They were in their 80s, but I used to talk to them and all of that, and they were born in like the late 1800s. So they were Victorian gentlemen. But they never mentioned any events around the turn of the century. So for that, I'll go on that living memory. But having said that, the weirdest thing, I walk through an area of my city today, Canton, and it's just like any British city, the old Victorian houses. The dates are up on the apexes for 1898. Well, that's all right, they're Victorian, it's only 100 years ago. And when I got home, I look on Google, any pictures of these things being built in our reality? No. So why is that? An entire estate, a Victorian estate in my city, and there's not one picture available of it being built? The dates are altered. These buildings must be a lot older. Okay, we're calling them Victorian. Something really is askew. I go on the Tavistock Handbook, which is the book 1984. They tell you in there the history is handed to us. We're in narrow windows of time. Even their time is different. In the opening chapters of 1984, the clock strikes 13. They're on like literally, 30 nowadays, or 26-hour days. It's just crazy.
We're on a secondary time, which is why we run after seconds. We're always second. We're always in second place. That's why we measure time in seconds, not first. It's second time, not the first time.
Exactly, second place.
And that's something that's still quite murky to me, but I understand that that's there, and it's something that is pre-designed into our life. That's how we measure time.
I've never felt at home yet in this place.
Martin, can we ask you a little bit about the mud floods for a completely unaccustomed ear? What are the mud floods, and just talk us through.
Well, the simplest visual key for people who go into the subject is this certain specific style of architecture. So that would be mansion type buildings or civic buildings, as in our civic buildings in all major cities in the world. Okay. They're made of a specific type of stone. Civic buildings are used a type of granite, white granite, other types of granite. And these Victorian, what they call Victorian, you don't get older. You get the odd city with Chester and these nice little hamlets in Britain will have older 1700 buildings, they say. But most of the world really is Victorian buildings. Okay. Now that was a big alarm call. Now it seems, there's a brilliant example near me, okay, with an entire floor, with a front door and a window, all below ground level. Okay, so the question is, why would someone put a door and a window below the street level? Well, we think that something has happened in the past. I believe it's around the early 1800s. I think that it was 1811 through to 1816, finalizing the Tambora earthquake event, which did, alter the climate. If you go in with the official narratives, then something really massive happened. So we can go with that, okay? But there might have been later stuff, okay? But I've got books from the 1850s, and there's no reference to any major events except for miasma, poison air, and everything is really in a bad way. So it's like the whole of society is piecing together after massive events. The art record is what I go into. The art record certainly says the same. And most of antiquities, now where these new libraries are arriving from is blown my mind, but they give you an alternative history. This Kirsch library or lead atlases from the Zurich library I've been going through. One book in specific, John Struess, a Dutchman, although he was with the East India Company, so evil. But it's a record of his voyages, and he is in the remnants of a wrecked world. And this is in the mid-1700s. Everywhere he stops, there is earthquakes, there is tsunamis have just happened. Everywhere looks like sort of Bandahachi. This is his report, and this is everywhere he lands. So something happened then, and something happened later. So trying to work out, the windows, if it's every 200 years, Okay, so I think that they lengthen them different times. I think it's down to. It seems like that if it's discovered, if we've sussed this thing up, this game that they're playing, it's all deeply encoded in our reality. And one leads you to another, to lead you to another. When you know, you certainly know. Okay, that they know.
Okay. So just for the completely unaccustomed ear, I'm just thinking through some of the things I've seen, and the evidence of mud floods you've said is sort of subterranean.
Yeah. So
floors, and these are across the globe, aren't they? And how about the photos of like empty cities? Do you want to walk us through that?
More. I've got more than that have just arrived yesterday. That's blown my mind apart. One of the guys has posted a video, and it says reset in South Wales, and it's two guys walking through a town of the valleys in South Wales, and every single house is abandoned. Not only that, the furniture is left in them, and all of the stuff is on the gardens, kids' toys, the trampolines, everything is still there. And they go through street after street after street, and the entire town is gone. There are some reasons, polluting of the water, what have you, but where are the people? But the towns everywhere, Libya got a load too, and yeah, China. Is it maybe therefore to be occupied in the future? We don't know. If it fits with the agenda 24, which is getting these mega cities, cleaning up large areas for farming for them, then that would make sense. Actually, they need blocks
because China have built way more than they need, haven't they? One of the pictures that really struck me with, I think it might have been Ukraine, where there was a huge city with massive architecture, and all across the eastern side of this picture there was what seemed to be wiped out quadrant, so you could see the street layout but no buildings. And then on the left there's the huge buildings and the churches, and you could see maybe two people working on the church, but the rest of the streets were completely empty. It's so eerie to see.
Very eerie. It's like it's already happened, and it's like a similar story to these photos we're witnessing from the mid-Victorian era, with all the empty cities of St. Petersburg, everywhere actually. London, Dickensian London, at that time, supposed to be 1.5 million people. Yet all of the photographs of that certain narrow window show completely empty streets.
Where were they, please? Where were they? Were they hiding behind the camera, like a bit more camera shy? Like
people use the photographic process of 10 to 15 seconds, and people are moving in shadows. Yeah, I'm aware of that. Or early morning, no one's out. Early morning in like where some of these areas are like the busiest areas of London. Early morning, I don't care. It's the biggest city on earth at the time. Apparently, it's going to be busy. Okay, this is nuts. Why there's no one about. With the orphans thing arriving now, and that goes even more sinister. But I don't want to go there because it's really sinister. It ties in with, the if you Google orphanages fires, turns out that this specific type of architecture has doubled up to get rid of orphanages, these mansions, and heaps of kids in them at the same time. And when you Google it, it blows your mind to know how much this is referred. It's just like, I'm leaving that right there, right now. Wasn't 10 years back. But yeah, there's been definitely covering up of the story as well. Of this.
One of the ideas that I think it was Max Egan suggested, I don't know where he got his information from, was if you wanted to reset humanity, you could knock out all the adults and take the sort of, I don't know, certain age group and up who could stand on their own 2 feet at least, and leave them as the legacy, because they're not.
Is it? It's really not. I mean, you don't have to go too far-fetched to think that.
No. So
for the kids, where's their parents? That's the end of it.
Yeah. So if I can just lighten the mood a little bit and then just move towards things like alternative energy. You've come across loads of things. This is fascinating. Just break it down for us, Martin. What have you discovered?
Well, that was one of my favourite discoveries. That happened by accident, I suppose. I was studying these lead atlases, which show you city skylines in antiquity, actually 1733. Okay, and what I found was an abundance of these massive churches. But I thought it was ridiculous. I thought, why do you need 20 churches per street? What else is going on? And I looked at the roofs of them and the spires magged in, and I seen that there was just this profusion of aerials and sort of devices that didn't fit. And then I found like literally sort of Tesla towers, aerials. And I thought, hang on a minute. At the same time, I was looking into somatics. And then I was filming stars as well. Okay. Like with my camera, I was filming Venus, and they looked like they were coming through as a disturbed cymatic wave. So I was doing that at the same time. And then the penny dropped, and I thought, Christ, the windows in churches are cymatic patterns. Boom. And that was an awakening. And then I went a bit further. And then when I searched, it turns out like there is ideas out there at the same time running parallel of atmospheric electricity being used right the way through antiquity. Tesla being their man, I discovered free energy, but not really, because it was there all the way along. He's just a Serbian picking up tech that's all around him at the time. It was closed down by 1900 in time for Westinghouse and JP Morgan and their man, who is Edison. And that's the narrative we all go with, and not an ounce of it is true, because that's official narratives, you see. We'd avoid them as plague, because they're all just narrative. That's all they are. So true too.
I remember the first time you discovered it, there were some things that looked like street lamps until you zoom in. Was that in Ukraine? Was it? What's
so many? It was everywhere. Actually, everywhere that I like. Ukraine, definitely. That was a monster find. That was an entire city below ground level, and it was just full of tech. But this technasmia that was discovered was a series of books which were turning these churches with devices for creating, which I could only presume is some type of organ energy through organs, which would be amped up and pumped through a cymatic pattern in a window. So the lead crystal actually plays a role. The lead in the window actually plays a role. All of it, even the ribbon, the fluting, every design, every second or every single millimeter has been put thought, like brain melding thought into these buildings. Okay. And they just can pump through like 432 or, or a vibration quality into the ether. So at some stage in the past, we would have had fruit bigger, food bigger, mass production. People would have been doing really, really well. And something happened. Parasitical takeover. Somewhere along the line, there is a death cult that rules everywhere in this place at this period. From 1600, there is everywhere you can go, from South America to South Africa to Asia, and everything is wrecked and everyone is starving, and it's just an apocalyptic scene because it's survivor times. Now, we tap ourselves in the back thinking we've done really, really well to get so far, but it's a really clever illusion, because what we've actually done is gone backwards. We were much further before, much further, and it was on different fundamentals of physics.
So is it like one step forward, 2 steps back kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly that. That's what we've done. It's really clever, but wow, you robbed us of our heritage.
You've only got to look at things like the pyramids at Giza and Luxor and Karnak, and look at all these wonderful sculptures and structures that we couldn't lift today, and you'd need lasers of precision to do the symmetry of those wonderful faces carved out in the rock. So speaking of stone structures, Martin, you've uncovered, or the team of researchers has uncovered star forts. Can you just break it down? What is a star fort and where are they?
Right. Well, we never got told about these in school. We've been taught about castles and fortresses.
I've seen images of these things, and even the one in London, and I was like, hold on a minute. I've lived in London my whole life, and my school never thought to take us there.
It's crazy,
not
isn't
one.
it?
They took us to the Tower of London. They took us to HMS Belfast. They took us a whole heap of places, Science Museum a couple of times, but didn't think to take us there.
I like Belfast. I've been on it. It was epic. I love that ship.
Yeah.
So tell us, Martin, what is a star fort? What is it?
Okay. Well, first of all, they are out of time and they're out of place, considering the society is supposed to be in place, considering the official narrative. They are highly technological devices. We can't really place how they work, but what we can know is they're based on what looks like fractal geometry. Okay, these things are mesmerizing in advancement. So these things are every single place in Christendom. Okay, there are places where they're not, but for the most part, they are everywhere. Okay, now I have uncovered evidence from a German who was basically he was sort of narrator for a dynasty at that time. So they were like, this is the juice. Okay, they're giving it to the royals. And he says that Star thought we should find out how to utilize these things, and we should find out how to make better use of them, maybe militarily. So that is a big clue. That tells you that these things initially were discovered. They didn't know what they were, the survivor times, and they reversed engineered them. Now, these things are, excuse the phrase, space age. Okay? Some of them look like they've grown. You've got a fractal geometry into another. You've got literally Mandelbrot set going in on itself. Not only that, the mind-blowing thing of these things is they go really, really deep. Very, very deep. And there's tunnels connecting them all, but more. There are petroglyphs coming off the tips. The petroglyphs can run clear across landscapes for hundreds, even thousands of miles, connecting up with other petroglyphs coming off of other star faults, which means every single one of them are all connected.
Wow.
Mind-blowing, like an international grid, like a grid that was everywhere in this place. It was just, can't imagine what's going on. Maybe it was from this technology, the cymatic technology, because they all got water, so they were buffers. There's water included in all technology, so it's complicated.
I've noticed some of the researchers are starting to use Google Earth and Google Maps to just zoom down on landscapes. So they're coming outside a town where you'd have all these modern new build houses. Literally half an acre to the east, you've got this amazing set of gouge marks in the land, but maybe attached to a star fort, maybe just they look like, I don't know, just
and everywhere
street markings from another town.
Yeah. Conspiracy Arrows posted the other day, Wild West town. It's just out in the nowhere. There was a little tiny community, and the city outside was, I mean, huge. The grid system the network was there, the streets, the layout, but the city had long gone, and it's not documented. There's nothing on the map to say there was a city there, and you're going to find this everywhere. But a lot of these maps will correspond. Like, I got old maps, and I look in the modern day, and there's no cities where these maps are. They're just not there anymore. Yet they're these really big cities. But the whole of Russia is the same, a large bit of America, where it's not affected by man. Because if you look on Google Earth, you're going to find a hell of a lot that's been, hampered by humans in America. Okay. Everything's boxed and cropped. You get out into Nevada, in the desert, and then you see it.
Oh, wow. So I'm going to switching gears a little bit, Martin. You had some great episodes on the exhibition centres. What do you call them? What did you call them in those days?
Well, there's a few names. They call them expositions. Okay.
Expositions, that's right.
Or exhibitions, or World's Fairs, or even in Britain we had the Festival of Britain. Festival of Britain is coming back next year apparently, and that's all part of this organisation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Big part of it for sure, no doubt about it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, they.
So I'm going to try and sum up what we've heard tonight, and then maybe you can take us forward into things we haven't yet covered, Martin. So we've covered a mudfud, we've covered a revision stroke reset, which may have happened. We've covered alternative energy through the churches, potentially, where they might have had inductive energy from the ether to heal our organs, perhaps, and make us feel better. We've touched on star forts, which seem to be interconnected across the plane, and we've also talked about.
Oh,
sorry.
We've also talked about the star forts and interconnecting tunnels and across the plane again. So I know there's way more to your research, Martin, but what else do you think we need to talk about tonight that we haven't yet mentioned?
There's just so much, I focus on what have caused it, this sort of the events, which seem to be everything that I've decoded or deciphered with all the guys seems to point towards plasma events. Okay. So the cause of plasma events, is it alteration of atmosphere, or is it a catalyst? So what you do is when you search these events, they correlate exactly with passing comets. So can we presume that the comets have caused any events in this place? Well, they do. They do. They cause volcanicity, they cause volcanoes to erupt, and they cause earthquakes. So they can cause massive events. And if they come close, okay, because they're not what they say, spinning off around any orbit anywhere, they're in tune with us, okay? And they come perpendicular. I think there's definitely something going on with comets, because every single one of these reset dates, like the 1609, the 1744 Great Comet, and then there's a later one around 1811, when all of this happens, this New Madrid event, which is the biggest event in American history. But when I posted about it 2 years ago, nobody knew. It's like I got Americans coming to me saying, what? The biggest event in American history, and I never knew nothing about it. Tell us
about it now, Martin.
Well, the New Madrid is in Missouri. The River Mississippi run backwards. It was, I can't even estimate how big this was, but it affected cities like hundreds of miles away, like Cincinnati, St. Louis, etc. There was a volcano. Wow. Let's check this. I got the document. It's like accounts, but they spook you right out. First you'll get the recurring. It's all the same MO as St. John's, San Francisco, or Lisbon. All of these events, okay, got the same MO. It starts with what sounds like artillery, very, very loud gunfire. But they think it's subterranean, and it comes before the event. You see, so it sort of points towards, could it be like human? Whatever intervention to cause these events. Now, it gets really, really weird. Now, it's trying to come to terms with how they could manage to cover it up to such an extent, and how we could have missed this, and how we could, the fact that you can't find any real evidence for these buildings is so recently ago really freaks me out. It's like, how long ago is this stuff really going down? Now, if like there was a Noah's flood, and we could pinpoint that to say, in my mind, the Middle Era, okay, the fall of the Roman, or that empire, which they will call, I don't know, Atlantis, I don't even know, but they were advanced, they were weird looking, they're not like us, they're all like Atlanteans, like they're all like Amazons, they're just not us, okay? Right. And they occupy this place, they work off weird fundamentals. I can't even get my head around it, it's too advanced stuff, but they're there. And then now they think we're advanced now in 2018 or so. Nuts. They don't feel like us. It feels like they've gone, and the people that have placed them in the 1700s have gone, and it feels exactly like we're not them. Like,
do you think that's why, in a way, we're not connected to our lineage? That's why it's impossible for us to be connected to our lineage, because there's a reset that can disconnect us from it.
I don't feel connected. Honestly, all my life I felt like a stranger. I was actually yearning. I want to go home. Like pining. I want to go home, but I'm already home. Where exactly are they talking about? I got this feeling. It's really weird, and I'm not the only one with it either. So maybe we just take them from somewhere else, or we're only going while they present it. This place could be very big indeed. Okay, they just present this DS model, which is just falling apart at the wayside. I don't know, a year or two. I don't think NASA are going to keep this liar. People can't be able to see through that. Not everyone's that daft. Surely to God.
They're having to diversify, aren't they? That's for sure. They're having to diversify almost daily to try and keep it going.
They just chuck things in to detract all the time. They'll find a way to muddy. They'll find a way to get away, nibble at something. Like with Neil deGrasse Tyson, it was like stuff to sort of get you thinking about him a week or two ago, away from the narrative. It's just like they keep doing this stuff. But I think they come in and unravel. Just forget about them. They're definitely, their day's done. They can't keep that light up forever. Too many are awake to that.
So can I ask a devil's advocate questions? How do you think all our history books have been written to at least make some kind of tie-in with 1,000 years, for instance, or at least going back to the Middle Ages, say 15 and 1600?
History books are only histories of lineages and dynasties. They don't talk about reality. All of the British history books cover royal lineage. They will go back to the Plantagenets, through to the Tudors, and they will come up to the Windsors of the modern day. They only talk about battles, wars between lineages, was the War of the Roses, the Hundred Years' War. So the history books are not actually a history of humanity per se. Okay, a real movement and a real migration, a real story.
They're a history of the monarch, aren't they?
They're the history of the monarch. So I don't
Which
really...
isn't the person, it's the actual entity of the monarch. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's bullshit.
Makes sense.
Thanks for answering that, because that's where I would be coming from. It's like, why can we go to the Tower of London and appear to see all this lineage? Well, answers that question.
I tried to look into my lineage. I got an ancestor. There was supposed to be the Marquis of Landoc in Wales. Okay, so my family have always talked about it, so we looked into it, and apparently the deeds are in like the Doomsday Book, and it cost a fortune to look into them. One of my uncles did it, but it was like 70 odd grand. He wasn't going to go there, so we didn't bother.
Looked into your lineage, yeah, because I've done the same. I'm part of the Glen clan.
Oh, really? I got Campbell, my great grandmother, my mother's nana.
Oh, there we go. Campbell. We're related. Hello, cousin. Oh, that's it. Martin, you were on the list. No, I'm joking. My uncle, he did it for me, and he managed to trace my lineage back to 1746. However,
exactly the same time as I got. Yeah.
Prior to the 1900s. Prior to the 1900s, it's a bit fishy.
There is no history before then, because like exactly the same story with me. I could the deeds got burnt in a fire in around the mid 1700s, but like the SS program in World War II, Hitler would only pass SS if they could prove their Aryan race through to only 1750. So not before then. Why is there not any before then?
Is that never mind about 1749, just 1750? Yeah, never mind about any prior to that. We'll go from there. Make it up as we go along. That's what it sounds like. We just go along.
A lot's happened in that period. The introduction of the Common Era, so the calendar changed. There was a giant comet, the Great Comet. You can't go on any. The history books are just so bogus. The alternative history is so much richer. What I've discovered is unbelievable, and everyone is sort of got a romance now and in love with Tartaria. Yeah. This anomalous peoples or this society that everyone believes or thinks that were plain white, that they were everywhere, and that they were very righteous. They were very righteous. So if that's the case, the powers that should not be have done a masterful job in covering up anything that about them that was any good, because anything that you can discover is to the contrary. But this architecture you can definitely attribute to somebody which we don't know. Now there are talk in a lot of like the Persians and other texts, there is an anomalous race that emanate from the east. The east, where exactly? Are they talking about the Tartars, or are they talking about somebody else that we don't know? Somebody that turns up maybe from somewhere else, or dirty-style massive armies with cannibalistic sort of nature. Imagine if they turned up, they could spoil the day. But I'm just saying, you don't know what the score is. We're in a small pocket here. We don't know what's outside. We don't know what's more. Look, they never tell the people the real story. Why would they do that? Imagine the conversation when they're underground in the underground giant tunnels they got under London. Yeah, I watched a documentary earlier, Roxanne. You want to see the size of the tunnels under London. They drive like big lorries under there, nobody knows. So the conversation would be, you got to keep quiet about this. People don't know about this stuff.
Desensitize the public with it today. They've done their big, massive easing into the public today by unveiling Mr. Elon Musk's tunnel under LA.
What did you say, Elon Musk? They were there already.
Yeah.
What's he saying there?
So, for those that don't know the story of Tartaria, the researchers have all come to a reasonably safe conclusion that Tartaria was a really, really big empire.
That was for
sure. So go into some detail there, Martin.
Well, they're on the early maps. Okay, can we trust the maps? Well, I don't know, but they're on all of the early maps, and I can trace them at least up to the 1800 mark, they're still around, even later, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Max Egan have just posted, I met the lady who found one of these disclosed CIA documents, okay? And it states that they were still mopping up Tartary in this document, war against Tartary, even in the modern day. So this could be a cover story for Napoleon actually entering, his invasion of Russia. This story that's not actually what's going on. He was parlayed with the Germans, the Prussians, and other forces, like an allied force, to mop up the last of Tartarian. Now, this could be exactly what was going on. These people could have been exactly what everyone thinks. And wouldn't it be a wonderful thing to think that was really going on? It is a beautiful dream, guys, and we can try and make this happen. But yeah.
And
yeah,
the maps that you've seen, they've shown
dozens.
They've shown the growth of the Tartarian Empire growing bigger and bigger, haven't they? And pretty much taking up. What do you say, Roxanne? Was the certain parallel to the other parallel right across the plain? Is that right?
What?
I'm sorry, I'm not speaking English, am I? You've talked about a band of the Earth to getting taken up. Because I used to think it was all across Asia, across Europe, and there's parts of America. Yeah. So which region?
You're talking about Tartaria being a region.
Yes.
So yeah, if you put it like down onto a flat plate, then the Tartarian region would be mostly everything in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, that's centre bit. Yeah. Yeah, because the centre bit is even in the Mercator projection, the famous Mercator projection of Hyperborean, is still a Tartary Sea. So the Arctic Ocean is a Tartary Sea, right the way around the Hyperborean, even on the American side as well. Right, it's crazy. I've seen some depictions which state it's like reference to Tartary in America as well.
Maybe not.
But not so much Europe.
Sorry? It keeps, because the amount of times I keep hearing people, when I keep hearing the actual word Tartarian, Tartaria, Tartar, I keep hearing my mum's voice saying Tartan.
Oh, it's all in our. Oh no, it's right the way through our culture. Look, Tatar, we say Tatar. Like, what's Tatar mean? Bye bye. Yeah. And what have we done to Tataria? Bye bye. Tatar. Yeah. It's a bit of an irony. So I feel it's something in the Scots. I think they were definitely there. They got tartan. Tartar sauce. Tartar sauce is delicious. It's it's nutritious. Everything about tartar sauce is positive. So that might be a clue. There seems to be a lot of clues to this place in our narrative, in our language as well. There's a lot to do with that language.
The Tartarian sauce to eat with fish.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. I love tartar sauce on fish. Nice bit of place.
So obviously Tartar the empire is no longer with us, and there's been a huge revision. What other subjects within your research would you like to cover in the last sort of 5-10 minutes here, Martin?
Well, I've been doing a series, The Great Story Never Told, which I put out last night. It's a multifaceted subject where I propose a double torus model for the place where we live, or just the electromagnetic model. But obviously I can't prove anything I'm saying, but what I can do is I can decode through antiquity and a massive amount of persuasive proof to prove what I suggest. Okay, so I've done basically 16 hours of this and thousands and thousands of images to show this is, in my mind, a reality. Okay, I think. Okay, it goes deeper than that. It's a beautiful thing, honest to God. Once the penny drops, it just gives you shivers right through. The applications for humanity, once we wake them all up to what actual purpose in this place is, it's just magical, honest to God, it is. And it's a knock-on effect, because once one person wakes up, everyone around that person, just by association, they wake up as respond. It's like the catalyst effect. It's really, really peculiar. And there's no stopping this. There's no stopping this. It's like that awesome wave. It's invisible, that travels, everything is electromagnetic, but people as well. All right. I just shown on this video last night that the rib cage is a physical manifestation of an EM wave. Yeah. An EM wave is exactly a rib cage. Okay. So we are more than they are telling us. Okay. I think that our heart is not really a pump. I think that might be also a torus field. I think we are completely electromagnetic. If we have a heart attack, how did they bring us back to life, guys? They chuck magnets and electrocute you. So electricity will bring you back to life. So electricity is obviously key to our life. Everything is electric. trick without
it can give it and take it away at the same time.
And so the series you're talking about is The Greatest Story Never Told, and that's a playlist now, isn't it, on your channel?
Yeah, my playlist needs attention actually, but yeah, okay. It's got a good response. It's as I said, it's going in places I never thought it would take me. It is absolutely mind blowing for the people that do delve in, and it is quite awakening. It's a separate awakening from waking up to the flat Earth. It's a separate awakening to the history lie. It's something completely different.
Amazing.
Never been thought of before. Some of this stuff is not being thought of before, as far as I can see these ideas in humanity this time round, because I can't find any reference for it when I go down that road. But
the tangents you go on are completely unique as far as optics are concerned, for what I'm seeing. You've done an incredible body of work. Am I right in saying you coming up to your 1,000?
Yeah. 999 videos, my last was, and I got my next video 1,000. I'm very much looking forward to that. I gotta be honest, I've got a lot of epic stuff to present. I've got to be
congratulations.
So I will have one epic event for the
work you've done. I mean, that's an insane amount of work you've done and content that you produce off of the back of the research you've done. The mileage you've done, Martin, is absolutely monumental.
I wasn't going to be giving up, and on these I wasn't going to do it basically. They've tried everything to quiet me. I've been copyrighted. I've had everything that happens on YouTube and besides, with hacking and threats and everything else, the whole shemoli. But that just infuses me to do it.
Yeah, you're still
plus this way, like I said when I talked to you guys last night, this way of unselfishly working together is a brilliant example to humanity. It really is, because it just got so much difference. Look what we've achieved. All of this stuff is not me, it's a load of guys together. I just do the legwork, if you like, and put the pieces together and present it and do the effort. But everyone else, this is my comment. I could no videos. I'll just read my comment stream and be enough.
I do remember in the early days it was Flat Earth British Sub, wasn't it? And Captain Kirk, was it? The guys that were helping you out in the early days.
They are epic guys, man. I was struggling with the amount of stuff coming in. I thought I was struggling compared to now. It's a ridiculous notion. But yeah, at least stepped up and. There's loads of guys.
Yeah, we can't shout them all out, but there are some channels doing similar work to yourself and collaborating together.
Yeah, John Levy, Mudflood, Philip I talked to this morning. Philip Justine, he's awesome. I'm going to have him over. We're going to have a hangout over the week. Yeah, because we haven't hooked up in a couple of months. And he's also very supportive of me, my channel, and I am with him. He's just an awesome bloke anyway. So yeah.
Of you, Martin. When I spoke to him, he spoke really highly of you. He's
he's awesome. Yeah, we've been on the same thought patterns since the very beginning. It's been absolutely brilliant. We've had a little bounce off. I like this thing what we've done with Conspiracy Harris and other channels, where rather than just I want this for myself, it's no, we'll pick up the baton. You can take this one on, and then we'll take it back over, and we'll see how forward and see where it takes us. And the dividends are massive. It's been unbelievable. Yeah. I love it.
It's like masterminding and crowdsourcing the problem, isn't it? It's awesome. Well, like Roxanne says, we would just want to acknowledge you for how you are showing up, Martin. We love your work. We think you're just a joy to listen to. We love your sense of humor and your curiosity, and we love you. Love the way you love everyone else, because you're such an awesome person. So we acknowledge you for that. We acknowledge you. You acknowledge you for that,
guys. You want to buckle in, because what comes up next is going to I tell you what. People's comfort zones being rocked with some information. It does rock your comfort zone.
So let's just quickly signpost everyone to your channel, which is. Do you want to give us your channel, Martin?
Yeah, Flat Earth British. If you don't know, Flat Earth British, you can find me under my own name as well, Martin Liedtke. And that's pretty much. I have got a Facebook, but I only use that for sharing, etc. But it's picking up actually since Max has dived on my Facebook.
Well, we're just congratulations for bridging that gap with Max Egan as well. I mean, that's awesome to hear you collaborating.
Nice thought of his. I thought actually to give a knowledge branch. I know that he hasn't had best of times in the past with our community, the flat earthers. He did go on a plane to disprove us once, but that didn't work out in his favour, actually. Actually went the other way.
Well, let's just keep that door wide open.
Awesome. Yeah, man, listen, that is wide open. And his thought about bringing all the community together. I don't see the shape of the earth or the environment we live in is enough for such nastiness against communities in the community. Ridiculous, pathetic anyway. We should all work together. And listen, like Max said, if it all falls and we get the day back, right, all of that we'll find out.
Absolutely.
Right.
So on that note, we just want to thank you once again, Martin, for joining us. We could have easily gone another 3 hours, but let's just let everyone come to your channel, learn what we've been talking about tonight, go and have some fun, enjoy this deep dive into this fascinating subject. And we look forward to speaking to you very soon again, Martin. So take care. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks. Peace and love, people.
Take care, darling.
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. I'm a flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther. I'm a flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther. I'm a flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther. I'm a flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther, flat earther. Because it doesn't curve, the water always finds its level.
What'd your teacher do?
She just didn't talk to me anymore. All she did was walk away. And I was like, what is this about? What?
That's okay though. For being so young, you're very, very smart. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So keep up the good work, man, and stay flat, okay?
Okay, I'm a flat earther. She couldn't do it.
Rip this up for sound bites. This is awesome.